Did you inherit $1 million from your grandparent, or are you about to become wealthy from someone else's hard work? If you say yes to these questions, this show is not for you. You, the hardworking, committed, and ambitious professional who have a 9-to-5 corporate job or a 12-hour shift worker keeping the assembly line running. Perhaps you run your gig as a freelancer, or maybe you run a small business. You are in the right place. Welcome to the Career Evangelist Podcast, where you get your weekly tips, ideas, strategies, and inspiration to find purpose in what you do so you can build a career you are passionate about and live a fulfilled life. Here is your host, Bola Alabi.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Career Evangelist Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a truly inspiring guest, Ty Hoesgen. Ty is the CEO of Advanced Growth Institute, an elite communication coaching company. Ty's journey is nothing short of remarkable. Growing up as a shy kid on a farm near a small town of only 800 people, Ty faced society anxiety that could have held him back. However, he transformed his life through mastering communication techniques, and now he's a renowned communication coach and a two-time best-selling author. That's awesome. Ty has helped over 300 professionals get promotions and land new jobs. And his award-winning communication club has impacted more than 36,000 people. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Ty to our community, and he's going to share his story and some powerful insight on how to communicate effectively, hone any room, avoid common voice mistakes, master body language, and much more. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest, Ty. Hey, Ty, what's going on?
Thank you for that introduction, Bola. That was fantastic. I appreciate it.
Okay, that's it's good to have you here, Ty. I must say so. So where are you joining us from? I know you are in the United States. Is that correct?
I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Canada. Oh, wow. So all the way from Canada, it's good to have you on the Career Evangelist Podcast. So I just did a little bit of intro. I want to hear from you. Why do you think it's important to have these communication skills and hone any room? Why is that important, Ty?
Communication, when we think about it, it's really the lifeblood of everything that we do. So whether it's personal, whether it's professional, you can really have a massive impact on your life by even improving your communication skills a little bit. And the first example that comes to mind is myself. You had mentioned briefly that I grew up as a very shy, awkward kid on a farm. And I've come a long way from the kid that loved to climb trees, and his favorite activity was avoiding people at all costs. I actually had an older sister growing up, and she was the exact opposite of me. So my older sister, she was very bubbly, she was extroverted, she was outgoing. And so whenever someone would try to ask me a question when we were kids, she would jump in and answer for me. She'd say, "I'll tell you what Ty thinks."
Oh.
So I actually grew up not having to talk a lot, and I didn't want to talk a lot. I just wanted to hide behind the scenes and just chill in the background. So as you can imagine, once you enter the professional world and you want to build your career,
Yes.
that's not really the most effective way to live life, trying to avoid human contact.
No, that's not going to work.
It's not going to work, no. And so it became very apparent to me how important communication was, especially in my first job right out of university. Was selling life insurance as the only job I could get.
Mm-hmm.
So now at this point, I'm actually afraid to ask somebody about their weekend and just have a little casual small talk. And now my whole income is dependent on having tough conversations, talking about death, disease, disability, what's going to happen if you die young. Not exactly the most fun conversations, as you can imagine. And so it was really in that job that I realized how bad I was at communication and speaking, and really how important it was for me. I remember in particular, there was one moment where I had to give a very small presentation to just a couple coworkers, a couple teammates in a meeting. And I remember throwing up beforehand, going to the bathroom and just throwing up because I was so nervous. And I remember just staring up at myself, looking in the mirror and just thinking, why is this so hard for me? And why am I like this? Why isn't this easier? And it was at that point I knew that I really had to do something about it, because with the amount of time that we spend at work, it's very important that you at least don't hate going to work and you can at least have some conversations with people, right? I was starting really small at that point. So that's really what made me obsessed with communication. That was about a decade ago now. So I've just been obsessing over communication for the past 10 years. And then flash forward now, being a communication coach, the inspiration really came from wanting to help others build these skills, because it took me so long to learn everything on my own. Now being a coach, I've come up with a really fine-tuned formula over the years so that no matter where you're starting from, even if you're an excellent speaker and you want to become elite, or you're pretty good and you want to become great, knowing how to level up in the quickest time possible is really the essence of what I teach. And it's pretty cool to realize that even a normal, average person can learn to speak like the world's top leaders just by knowing how to practice, and just by realizing that these are all just skills that a person can learn. And even just improving the communication a little bit, the amount of career advancement, people will see you differently. They're going to give you more opportunities, more respect. You'll have more influence. And that's just professional. The personal, we could go do a whole deep dive on that. But even just focusing on professional, the amount of progress you can make in your life by improving your communication is tremendous.
Oh, that's so good, Ty. And I could relate with what you explained about having that anxiety, especially for working professionals, because I know quite a number of people, whenever it's time for them to make any presentation, they wouldn't feel comfortable. They will want to do anything they possibly can so that they can avoid that presentation. But you said you did something about it. What exactly did you do to help you deal with that? Maybe we call it communication anxiety.
I like what you said about certain people, they'll get really nervous during those presentations and stuff like that, because it's important to note a lot of people feel very confident in most situations, and then it's just those kind of opportunities that they maybe don't do very much, like giving that presentation, or it's a very important meeting with a very important type of person, client, or whoever it might be. And so if you're listening to this, just keep in mind it's totally okay if you're usually a great speaker, but then there's just certain times that you don't feel confident, you don't feel nervous. That's really important to realize. Okay, there might be a gap just in certain situations, and it's just as easy to work through that as it is through anything else. So just wanted to recognize that it might just be certain situations. Now, how do we actually get better at those? Depends on the person, but there's always a combination of, there's really two main areas, and then there's kind of layers to each. So two main areas, we'd really have the internal. So how does a person feel inside? How confident are they? Are they nervous? Are they stressed? Are they anxious? And then the external is really the skills, right? So what are the skills that they can develop to actually perform better, speak better, and have the impact that they want in the moment? So for me, one of the places that I first started was the internal. So shifting some of the beliefs. There's different work that we do with the subconscious mind. One of the examples of that is you can ask yourself what are called identity shifting questions. So a little different than affirmations. We may know affirmations as I am blank statements, right? I am confident. That's an affirmation. The problem a lot of people have with that is your brain can disagree with you, right?
That's
It's like,
right.
well, actually, you're not that confident. You didn't feel
Confidence.
very confident earlier.
Right.
And so a shift on this that we found works really well is making it a question, because the subconscious mind loves questions. So you can say, why am I supremely confident when I give presentations? And the way that the brain works is that the subconscious wants to go searching for an answer. They don't disagree with questions. The subconscious goes and searches for an answer. And it does that by actually helping to shift some of the beliefs, shift some of your habits. And so that's actually one way that you can start making some of those internal changes is consistently every day asking yourself questions like, why am I, and then insert whatever you want to be, why am I such a captivating speaker even when I'm put on the spot? Stuff like that. So that's the internal side of things. There's things you can do with your breath that are helpful in visualizations. That stuff we've all probably heard of before, but yeah, the internal is certainly a big part of it. And the state that you're in while speaking, like how are you feeling in the moment? What are you thinking in the moment? That's always a big part of it. And then for certain other people, maybe they actually just need the skills and they just need to prepare and practice the right way because that might be the only obstacle for them. And they just need to know, okay, here's how to practice. Here's how to stop saying your ums. Here's how to speak so that people listen to you more closely, stuff like that.
Okay, so I would like to drill down a little bit more, if you don't mind. You talked about practice and you talked about hum. I do hum from time to time. I try to deal with it I just did one right now, even just by trying to ask you questions. So, what are some recommendations that you can give us in terms of how to practice or maybe how to eliminate those arms when we talk?
Absolutely. So I was just working with a woman, her name was Jessica, actually, and she did not even know how many times she was using these ums and uhs.
Yeah.
And she didn't use them all the time, but it was in those moments when she was a little bit nervous
Mhm.
or when there's very important people around. Maybe it was the CEO she was talking to. And, there's a little bit more pressure when we're
Yes.
talking to really important people, whether we like it or not. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that first you want to do is try to record yourself as much as possible, just so that you first know when you're actually saying it. That's always the first part. And then with filler words in particular, you can do a couple things. You can practice speaking in shorter sentences and doing a pause between each sentence. So if you're specifically practicing doing that pause and kind of breaking up your sentences into shorter chunks instead of just one long run-on sentence with an in between,
Mhm.
that's one way that you can do it. You can also practice taking a breath instead of doing the ums. So just a short little breath in between your statements or when you're thinking. And this works because if you're listening, you can try this now. You can't actually say any words while you're breathing in air.
Right.
So if you practice and you train yourself to just take a short little breath in between statements or while you're thinking, it's impossible for you to say any words during that time. So we've got use shorter sentences, practice pausing in between, and you can also practice taking a little breath between those sentences. Those are 3 ways right there that you can start training yourself to not use those filler words.
That's good. Now, I know most of the coaches that have been on my show, they have frameworks of kind of steps to help their students or their clients through whatever process or whatever problem they are trying to help them solve. Now, when it comes to communication or mastering communication that you do, are there any frameworks that you guide people to follow?
Definitely. Everything is customized depending on where the person is starting from, depending on exactly what they want to improve. Everyone's a little bit different. So it might look slightly varied depending on the person, how skilled they are, that type of thing. But a framework that everyone seems to like, and anyone listening, you can start testing this right now. One of the simplest ones for just a way to explain your ideas is point, reason, point. Okay, PRP.
Yeah,
So let's say somebody asks you a question. You would start by stating your point. So this is the best option for us, whatever the best option is, you'd say that first. Then you'd give your reasons. Why is this the best option? You'd explain the reasons you believe that thing is your best option. And then you restate your point at the end so it's very clear to everyone listening. That's why this is the best option. So if you can think of how to organize your thoughts and ideas with some type of structure before you just open your mouth and start speaking and start, throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping for the best. If you can try to structure it in your brain quickly, or if you can have steps like that to follow, you can also add an example after your reason, which would make it prep. So it'd be your point, reason, give a quick example, and then restate your point. So practicing doing all of these things throughout your day, eventually they'll become habits, and then everything that you'll explain will just start being more clear and concise.
Good. So most of my listeners, they are working professionals. And we know that communication is essential, at least if you are going to be working with people. But I also want to know, how do you help this group of people to get promotion or land new job using this communication coaching?
When you think about it, why do people get promoted? Right? Why does a person get promoted? Obviously, your skills, how hard you're working, everything like that plays a role. But a lot of times it's based on how do people see you in the organization, right? How do they perceive you? Do they perceive you as a person that deserves that higher level of role? Do they see you as a person that's at that next level where it's just like, it just makes sense? He speaks like this, he presents himself like this, she speaks like a leader, she deserves this leadership role. A lot of it is perception, right? And of course we could say, well, it shouldn't be that way, it should be all based on experience and hard work, but that's not really how the world works, just kind of the way that it is. So by changing how you are speaking, how you're presenting yourself with your body language, how you're explaining your points, the words that you're using, you change the perception of how people see you. So if you are speaking like a very confident leader, you have the body language of a very confident leader, using the words, and you're explaining yourself clear and concise, like a very confident leader. People see you as a person that deserves a higher level of role. Even if you're extremely experienced, you're working hard, but people see you as somebody that just the way that you're presenting yourself is ranked lower, or you're kind of devaluing yourself with the way that you're speaking. You sound less credible, then the person then sounds more credible. That's how a lot of these decisions get made. And so we change the way that they communicate and show up, which then changes how they're perceived. And then from there, that's found to be far more effective for getting the promotions and the raises and getting the new jobs versus working harder.
Oh, that's so good, Ty. I like the way you explain that. And I think that's a very, very valid point that many people may not know. Now, let's talk about mistakes. What are some common communication mistakes that people make? And if you can also share with us how they can avoid those mistakes.
Absolutely. So probably one of the biggest ones is not being clear and concise enough. So I highly recommend everyone learning PRP or PREP, just ways of structuring your thoughts and ideas. That'd be the first. So we already covered a fix for that. One other framework that I'll give you, because people like the really tangible frameworks, is what, so what, now what. So this is just another way to organize your thoughts and ideas. So if you need to talk about a problem, or you need to bring up a situation, first say, here's what the situation is, that's the what. Then say, Here's why it's important. Here's why we should care. That's the so what. And then the now what is here are the next steps. Right? So here's what we're going to do about it. Here's a potential solution. There's 2 frameworks right there. I wouldn't try to learn any others. PRP or prep, and then what, so what, now what. That's really going to go a long way to make sure that you're not over-explaining yourself. You're not giving unnecessary information. You're not rambling, giving too many details. Because especially in a meeting, when you have a tight, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, big agenda, lots to go through, I'm sure we've all been in that meeting where the person's just going on and on and on, and we still have 3/4 of the agenda to go through, but we've been talking for 40 out of the 60 minutes. You definitely don't want to be that person, so be clear and concise as much as possible. I'm going to go back to record yourself too, as much as you can, just to see some of the mistakes you are making. Big ones that I see that can discredit people often are common voice mistakes. So we talked about the filler words. That's a big one that makes you sound less credible. People will also do things with their voice, like they'll get quieter at times, or they'll speak a little too softly, or even speaking too loud. That makes you sound annoying. Now, speaking too quickly is probably one of the most common things I hear too.
Yeah.
Especially when we're a little bit nervous, we talk too fast.
Yeah.
And especially if we're trying to explain a point. If I was talking like this, just talking really, really fast and trying to explain everything at this pace, no one's picking up on what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's right. That's
And you
right.
sound kind of nervous if you're talking like this, right?
Yeah.
So most people I work with have no idea that they're doing a lot of these things. That's why I can't stress the recording enough. But I would train yourself to practice slowing down and pausing.
Right.
Train yourself to be aware of those filler words. Train yourself to use the right amount of volume, right? So you want to have a strong voice, but you don't want to be too quiet and sound kind of unsure of yourself, right? Another thing is people will discredit themselves by saying things like, I feel like this is probably the best option. Or I think this might be something we could consider. And they sound unsure just in the way that they're saying it. Instead of saying, here's something we should consider. There's a big difference in the way that we are using our voice. And even words like I think, or I feel, or maybe, might, a lot of times they're not necessary, and they really take away from you sounding credible, from you sounding like a person that deserves a high level of respect. You could have the best ideas ever. You could have the best ideas in the company. But if you're presenting them in a way that doesn't sound supremely confident, it's not clear for people to understand, and it's not presented in a way that's persuasive, then all of those great ideas are not really going to be listened to.
That's right. That's right. So, Ty, I think you are a great communicator. And here's why I say that. From the pitch of your voice, the tone, the gesticulation, the way you are talking, you are completely taking the attention of your listeners. Most people, they are going to be listening to this on podcast, but some will watch our videos and they'll be able to attest to that. And to me, these are what I'll say body language in terms of communication. So I want to ask you, Ty, how important is body language in communication? And what are some key tips that people need to know in order to master body language?
If you're in person or if you're on video, body language can sometimes have the biggest impact, even compared to your voice and especially compared to your words. So imagine that you're speaking to somebody and they're kind of leaning back, their arms are crossed, they're looking away the whole time.
Not
It's a
interested.
yeah, it's a very different feel. Now I
Mhm.
could be saying the exact same things
Right.
with the exact same voice. But let's say I'm just not even looking at you, or I'm kind of slouching. or I'm making myself look small, or maybe I'm taking up too much space. No matter what I'm saying, your opinion of me is going to be very different. So body language is something that can have a huge impact just on how people see you. It's one of the main things, one of the main areas that we work on. Because if you're saying all the right things, but your body language is giving off different messages, and there's conflicting messages there, your voice says you're confident and you're sure, but your body language says you're unsure, then people are going to be kind of confused, and they're going to be more thrown off by the disconnection than actually listening to the impact of what you're saying. So a couple of easy things you can do right now. Just make sure you're aware of the way that you're sitting. So good posture, keep your shoulders down and back, keep your head up, chest up. Simple things like that. A lot of times, especially because we do video calls all the time, we get a little too comfortable sometimes, and we're leaning with our hand on our face, and we're just chilling in a little too relaxed of a position.
Right.
And keep in mind, everyone can see you, and everyone's making a judgment just naturally without even trying of who you are. So these things can actually play a role in, is this person going to give you an opportunity? Is this person going to want to give you a promotion?
Right.
And so making sure that your body position is one of strength and confidence is important. Eye contact is important too. We want to be making the right amount of that. Doesn't have to be 100% of the time, but at least most of the time. That shows a lot of confidence, helps you connect. And visible hands, if you're in person, is important. It's a little tougher on video calls, but there's a big link between visible hands and trust. Lots of science behind this, but just keeping your hands out in the open, so no hands in the pockets, no hands hidden under the desk. People are going to see you as more confident and more trustworthy, just if your hands aren't hidden. So we've got our posture, eyes, and hands, 3 things that we can do right there that'll make a big difference.
That's good. So let's get personal a little bit, Ty. To you, what are the turning point that made you realize the importance of effective communication? Because now you are a communication coach. There must be something maybe along the line that convinced you that, hey, this is important. Let me go focus on it. What is that thing?
One thing that jumps out that comes to mind first is I'd made a lot of these changes for myself over the years and spent a lot of time working on it and building the skills. And then it was the first person that I actually started teaching some of the things that I'd learned. And it was one of my coworkers, one of my teammates at the time. And I remember all I had taught him was just a couple little body language things, which is very on topic. And it was just kind of the way that he was sitting, the way that his body was positioned, where he was looking, like really pretty straightforward stuff. Didn't even talk about the speaking. And I remember him coming up to me, I think it was a few weeks later, and he said, I feel completely different. And everyone is treating me differently. They respect me more. They're listening to me more. There seems to be less resistance to what I'm saying. And so with him, he was showing a lot of closed body language positions. So, kind of blocking his body, not really opening himself up and connecting. And it was in that moment when he was just raving about how much of a difference some of these small things had made. I realized, oh, this is something that can really change lives, because it's one thing when you help yourself improve and you see all these changes, you're like, oh, this is awesome, I feel amazing. But then when you see others have such positive results just from a tiny bit of what you learn, of what you have taught them rather, that was really an eye-opener for me. And that was probably the first spark that made me think, oh, I want to keep teaching this to people.
Okay, so as we are wrapping it, Ty, let's go to some rapid fire question. Favorite communication book? What's your favorite communication book?
I'm going to do a shameless plug here because I have a book on communication, and it took me 800 hours to write. It's called Elite Communication Skills. That came out a couple years ago. And at the time, that was everything that I knew about communication summarized into kind of the most impactful things a
Okay.
person could learn. So I'll do a shameless plug and say Elite Communication Skills by Ty Hoesgen.
Oh, that's good. You wrote a best-selling book or two best-selling books, so you should, of course, anytime brag about it and recommend it to people. I'm gonna check it out myself. So, preferred method of communication, email, text, or call?
Text.
Text. Okay. What inspires you the most?
Thinking about the potential of not only who I could become, but how many people I can help.
Good. What's your go-to relaxation activity?
This is going to sound counterintuitive, but it's actually lifting weights very hard because I feel like it releases so much stress that afterwards I feel very relaxed and accomplished. That's actually my reward at the end of the day, is usually a workout, believe it or not.
Okay, that's good. What's your favorite place to travel to?
I really like anywhere with a beach. And so Mexico, Puerto Vallarta is the one that's coming to mind because I've just done lots of trips there and it's always so peaceful and so rejuvenating. So I'm going to say Mexico, beach vacation.
Awesome. Best advice that you've ever received, Ty.
I had a coach that totally opened my eyes when I was struggling actually with the business early on. And he said, Ty, this is supposed to be hard. And that really totally broke the frame of what I thought building a business was, which I thought, oh, if I'm struggling, I'm doing something wrong. This should be easier. But he said, no, it's supposed to be hard. This is what hard feels like. This is what it's supposed to be. And so once I realized that I actually wasn't doing anything wrong, that was just part of the process. I think that was one of the biggest game-changing moments for me.
Oh, that's so awesome. Finally, Ty, where can my listeners find you?
For sure. So, Bola, I just want to say you definitely inspire me with how much you over deliver for your audience. You've done well over 200 episodes at this point. So, I just want to recognize you for that.
Thank
And so,
you.
I also want to over deliver for anyone listening. And I want to give them a free gift just to say thank you for listening to the end of the episode. And so, I'm going to give away something, and I call this the CEO Communication Kit. So,
Mm.
there's two parts to this kit. The first part is a course. It's called Speak Like a Confident Leader in 7 days. So this course is really for anyone who just feels like they have more potential in them than what they've been showing the world, and they know that they could be a stronger, more confident leader and show up better in their professional life. But sometimes they feel like when they open their mouth, their words just don't always come out maybe as precise or as powerful as they'd like. And they're not always communicating at the level that they feel like they should be for where they're at in their career. Okay, so that's the first part of this course. That's the first part of the kit, which is a course called Speak Like a Confident Leader in 7 days. Now, the second part, this is something that I only give to paying clients normally, and this is called the Secrets to CEO Level Presence. Okay.
Wow.
So the Secrets to CEO Level Presence is something that I teach live, and I'll do that for free for anyone who's listening on a live one-on-one coaching call with me personally, just to say thanks for listening to the episode, thanks to Bola for giving so much value to everyone. And so if you want to have the free one-on-one call with me to get not only the course, but also the Secrets to CEO Level Presence, you can go to my Instagram or LinkedIn, and that's at Ty Hoesgen, Tyhoesgen, at Ty Hoesgen. I'll say that one more time because the last name's a little bit tricky. Tyhoesgen. And so message me the word CEO24, CEO24. That way I'll know that you came from the podcast, and we'll set up the call. I'll send you all the resources. And so that's Instagram or LinkedIn at Ty Hoesgen. Just message me the word CEO24.
That's awesome. And that's where we are going to end it today, Ty. I'm going to leave all the links on my show notes so that my listeners can connect directly with you. It's been awesome having you on the show. I've learned a lot from listening to you. And I know definitely that I also need to up my communication skills, and I'll connect with you to learn more. Thank you, Ty.
This was awesome, Bola. I appreciate you.
All right. Take care, man.